Good afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon.
She'll be joining us shortly. In the meantime, you've got Mr. Malcolm Kowani and Mrs. Vida Kamanya.
Right. Okay, that's great. Adentunche Lapondwa from Malawi.
And am I the chair, ZPPA?
Yes, it is, madam. You're welcome. We are just starting and just checking if everybody is present, and our delegates from the World Bank and the other partners are around. Okay, I think with we can start the Sumutwa one Tebola, the DJ from Swaziland. The chair, may I ask you to make a presentation? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Program Director. Good day, everyone. My name is Vusumutweni Watamatsebula, the Chief Executive Officer of Eswatini Public Procurement Regulatory Agency, ESPRA, and the chairperson of the network. It is a great pleasure that I get the opportunity to be part of this meeting with you today. I would like to welcome all the network members in the Southern African region present today here, members of the other regions present, and all participants, as well as representatives of our partners. As we endeavor to improve the government procurement in our respective countries, it is imperative that we come together and see how we can align ourselves with the new trends within the global procurement space and explore how we can utilize our procurement data to increase contract transparency, quality of procurement governance, so we can achieve better value for money, increase service delivery, and better development outcomes. Currently, our procurement systems in Africa, in the African countries, do not allow for display of public procurement information for analysis of efficient and transparent use of funds entrusted to government entities, government agencies, as well as state-owned enterprises. To change this situation, information on public procurement, such as reports, annual procurement plans, and contracts, needs to be opened up a little bit more. There is a need to fully commit in strengthening the use of technology to improve our procurement systems, not so because publicity is the most effective tool to achieve transparency in public procurement. I would like to encourage each and everyone in attendance today to be open-minded, utilize this opportunity to learn as much as we can from the knowledge and experiences of our fellow member countries and discuss the issues robustly. In that way, we'll be able to go back to our respective countries and come up with strategies for opening up public contracts and not end by just strategizing and committing, but also move towards credible implementation of our discussions. Above all, members, it is exciting to see how the network continues to ensure that member countries get together to share experiences and learn from each other as we seek to successfully implement procurement reforms in our respective countries. A big thank you to the organizing team. I'm very much impressed with the constant reminders, the drafting of the agenda in a very professional format. And we also look forward to more sessions to come. With those free remarks, I wish all of us a successful and constructive session today. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would ask the Secretary General, Mr. After Maru. After I kindly ask you to make your presentation, your remarks.
Okay. Thank you, Lucas. It's for me a great pleasure to see you again. And so, dear chair of the EPPN, dear Vusi, dear divisional manager supplies at Public Procurement and Asset Disposal of Botswana, coordinator of the Southern Africa Sub-Regional Public Procurement Network, and the chairperson of this session, dear Lucas Kenekai, dear directors of various public procurement authorities and delegates of Southern Africa, dear technical and financial partners, namely the World Bank, the African Development Bank, and the Islamic Development Bank, dear guests, the first journey with our partner, Open Contracting Partnership, starts on April 7 with the same theme as follows: collection and use of public procurement data, including open contracting data standard. Today, we are at the third session with them, respectively with the East Africa on April 7, 2022, the West and North Africa on May 5, 2022, and the Southern Africa now. Believe it, the pleasure has been greater and greater and participants increasing. For the example, participants were 40 for the recent session, and today we have 100% participation as all the 12 member countries of the Southern Africa Sub-Regional Public Procurement Network are around. This is a great proof of the great interest you have in our activities. Our deep gratitude to you. Today, the head of Africa, Mr. Edwin Muhumuza, is not around himself for some urgent issues to sort out. But the program's manager for Africa, Ms. Andy Okon, is there for the experience sharing. Thank you so much for stepping in. We send a big thank you to Mr. Molefe Isaac Fani, Chief Director at the Transversal Contracting Office of the National Treasury of South Africa, Ms. Sheila Ida, Director General of Zambia Public Procurement Authority, and Mr. Eddington Shilapondwa, Director General of Public Procurement and Disposal of Assets Authority of Malawi, for committing themselves to the success of the session by giving presentation. Dear officials of public procurement, dear member countries and technical and financial partners, especially the World Bank, thank you for the engagement and trust. As we commit to do more, be there with us for more. I want to take this opportunity to tell that we are preparing the second General Assembly that will be held in Eswatini. Stay tuned. You will have very soon all information about this General Assembly. I wish all of us a wonderful session. Long life to the African Public Procurement Network. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think from my side, in terms of the speech, it is very short, except just to welcome you to this session. It is a very crucial point where we share ideas, share information across to see how we can improve public procurement. And therefore, with that, I really appreciate the teams to have been here, and as it is an indication of a commitment to see that the network continues to be alive, and it also benefits our nations. So with that, come Mayor O'Connor for the keynote address. Thank you. Mayor O'Connor, please, you have the stage.
Hi, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. I would like to share my screen as I have a presentation, so let me see if I have presenting rights. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Blue and pink.
So can you see the screen now?
It's blue and pink.
It's blue and pink. Oh, 1 second. I'm trying to show my slide deck. Give me a minute.
We see only colors.
Okay, so let me try and ensure that.
Ms. O'Connor, just go to presentation mode. It will show to us properly.
Yeah, I selected presentation mode, and that is what came up. So let me stop sharing again. And try again, screen 1. Microsoft Teams. Okay. I'm going to try again because it seems like there's a challenge. So I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll start again. So can you see my presentation now? You're able to...
Okay, now it's good now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And thank you all for your patience. So today, on behalf, I'm representing my organization, the Open Contracting Partnership. My name is Andy Okon, and I'm the Programs Manager for Africa. And today we're going to be talking about why data is useful, and we'll be focusing on the open contracting use cases. So the objectives of this session, which will last somewhere between 20 patterns, to understand the concept of open contracting, understand how procurement data can be used to carry out their relevant procurement reforms through our use cases. And then finally, you'll be introduced to some examples of open contracting work. And of course, I've introduced myself, and I apologize to the network today, the southern region of the network, that my colleague Edwin is unable to be here today, but I do enjoy presenting the session to you all. So getting right into it, I'm going to talk a little bit about our organization, Open Contracting Partnership. We were spun out of the World Bank. It started off as a project on making the contracting processes globally more transparent, and it started in 2015, and it became a standalone company at that point. And We're basically a silo-busting not-for-profit that seeks to open up and transform public contracting. And we work on open data and open government across the entire chain. So not just one small aspect, which can you hear me? There seems to be an interruption. Yes. Thank you. Can everyone hear me though? Can I go ahead?
Please go ahead. Sorry for that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we basically work on open data and open government across the entire public contracting process. So we don't just focus on the award stage or the implementation stage, but we start all the way from planning to the implementation. And we're present in over 40 countries, both OECD and non-OECD countries. And our mission is basically to transform public contracting so that it's open by design, fair and efficient. And we want to be able to share results of open contracting in the sense of increasing competition, helping governments achieve better value for money, improving their efficiency, and of course, ensuring that there's integrity and public market. To know about open contracting actually globally accounts for 13 trillion US dollars in government spending across the world. That's public procurement as a whole. So what is open contracting? Open contracting basically works with governments, businesses, and civil society to transform public procurement to deliver better goods, services, and works for everyone. So using the power of open data and efficient participatory and effective participatory mechanisms, we basically help to reduce corruption, improve efficiency, enhance competition, and build credibility and trust, and in the longer run, achieve value for money for governments. And at the core of open contracting, we focus on publishing and using open, accessible, and timely information on government contracting to engage the citizens and businesses in identifying and fixing problems. So importantly, open contracting consists of disclosure and engagement. Those are the two key things that you would hear throughout this conversation. I mentioned engaging citizens and engaging businesses. And I also talked about working with the government to open up the access to government information. And this disclosure and engagement happens throughout the entire chain of procurement, including planning, tender, award, implementation through the delivery and completion of government projects. So open contracting has some main principles and practices, and these are the main ones that it focuses on. It focuses on moving from paper-based to digital procurement systems, helping you identify user needs during the planning stage so that what the government is rendering as a service to citizens is really what the citizens need. And then it also helps to design inclusive tender processes that would allow for small businesses and less enabled people in the society to participate in the contracting process. And of course, it ensures that stakeholders are engaged throughout the procurement process, starting from planning all the way to delivery. And finally, open contracting helps you track your performance and enable feedback loops during the delivery of government projects. So open contracting is basically those sets of principles that support the effective public service delivery and access to economic opportunity through open data and stakeholder engagement. So it's about disclosing procurement information and making it accessible so that governments can collaborate with residents, businesses, and private sector to address challenges across the contracting cycle and ultimately improve service delivery. So our main goal is that we help partners to think differently about procurement using an open government and open data approach to drive impactful, sustainable reforms. On the right-hand side, you can see what we call the OC donuts, the open contracting donut, which shows the 4 key steps of our engagement, the 4 levels of our engagement. We help you to set your reform goals around public procurement and secure buy-in on the political level. That involves the advocacy aspect of our work. And then moving a bit more technical, we help you to publish, use, and improve your contracting data in a manner that's accessible to everyone. And then I've mentioned over and over again, improving stakeholder engagement and oversight. And with time, you would obviously measure, adapt, and institutionalize that reforms to ensure that it definitely is having impact, a long-lasting impact that is sustainable ultimately. So why is data important, you may ask? Well, imagine the task of, look at that pile of paper on the left-hand side. Imagine the task of having to structure this paper-based information into a machine-readable data set. What information would you want to prioritize? For what purpose? How can this be useful? When you even see this alone, it seems very cumbersome. Is this the best and most efficient way of publishing or even storing your procurement data? So this is the goal of open contracting as a whole, to deliver procurement in a manner that is accessible and reusable. And a lot of the countries across Nigeria, across Africa, supported by the World Bank, of course, have started moving towards the e-government procurement and are working on the development of their procurement systems. And we've seen that across several countries in Southern Africa, in Eastern Africa, and in the West. And in the coming months, we'll get a better idea. We have a report coming out around that information on the EGP systems and what that is doing for the procurement space in Africa. And some of the countries you might think about might be Ethiopia, Kenya, Liberia, Sierra Leone, South Africa, of course, is also in that process. And we've been having we've had engagement with Zambia as well, to name a few other countries. So I mentioned structuring that paper-based data. You saw that pile of paper, and somehow if we move it to an EGP system, if we move it to a database, an electronic system, you could potentially have it arranged in this manner, where there's a clear structure from the planning to the initiation to the award, contract, and implementation. And that's just a bit of detail of what kind of information you can include in each stage. So you can see that clearly open contracting and the data standard help you to arrange your procurement information in a manner that is easy to find, easily accessible, and easily reusable. So that is how contracting data, in the previous slide, this is how contracting data is typically represented using what we call the open contracting data standard. And then secondly, we have another standard that's very peculiar to infrastructure, capital intensive projects, which we refer to as the open contracting for infrastructure data standard, called the OC4IDS. It covers both contracting information about and project level information. So that's why you see it's a bit more detailed and has divided the contracting process into 3 levels. And this is because infrastructure projects often involve multiple contracts. So what OC4IDS does is that it lets you not just see what is happening at a contract level, but how the project is performing overall at the different stages. So the open contracting data standards, these different open data standards are basically the basis on which we build and share tools that will help you to use and analyze procurement information. So this is just a visual representation of the value of structured open data. The paper-based procurement office we saw earlier clearly needs to be digitized, but simply converting those things to contract into digital data is not enough. It's important that that data is arranged, sorted, and presented visually. So doing this ensures that you can use data to get real insights and make sense of the information that is before you. And since engaging stakeholders like civil society groups, businesses, and citizens is such an important part of improving procurement as a whole, better practices in procurement, standardizing and structuring your data will make sure that these stakeholders can truly understand and use the data that you're publishing. So this is why it's important. It gives you that visual picture of a messy, unstructured data dump at the top left, and then what you have versus a visually structured and visually interpreted set of data. And it's important to see that there's a need to think about this in a long term for sustainable data governance, since procurement data will be created and updated continually on an ongoing basis. So it's not just for the moment, but it's for the long term. So the value of data obviously lies in how it can be used, when it's utilized and used for making decisions. And use cases, the open contracting use cases are important to help data publishers and users to identify what the metrics and the indicators and the different questions that you want to calculate and answer with the data that's presented before you. Be able to prioritize the different data fields that are relevant to the questions that you're asking or the research that you're carrying out, and what needs you might actually have for that analysis that you're carrying out, and then identifying the key stakeholders that you need to be speaking to about the analysis that you're carrying out. That is the value of data, how it can be used. And we break this down, the different ways we can use the data, into use cases, into 5 use cases: market opportunities, value for money, public integrity, service delivery, and internal efficiency. For each use case, there are specific data fields needed and indicators that can be calculated. So why are use cases important? I have 4 reasons here, and you could possibly think up a few more. It basically, identifying use cases helps you to define clear, measurable goals and what metrics are needed to track them. Those are your reform goals around public procurement. And then it can also help you prioritize what data you need to collect, publish, or analyze, and identify the key users of the data publication and develop strategies to increase data use. If you are clear about your goals and your data needs, then it can obviously save you time and resources. So we recommend that you define your use case at the beginning of your open contracting journey. So not when, okay, you're midway and then suddenly you're like, okay, we're carrying out this reform, but of what value is it going to be to us as an organization, as a government agency? So we recommend defining use cases at the beginning of your journey, since it can inform your data publication strategy and technical implementation decisions. So if you already have data, use cases can help you in the case that maybe you already have some data that has been captured electronically. What use cases can do is that it can help you identify what is possible to do with the data that you have, increase data use by different actors, and even improve how that data is used for decision making and improve the quality of your data further. So we have a use case guide for your reference. So I know I'm talking at you a lot and I'm speaking a bit quickly, but there's additional information and we have a wealth of resources that I can share with you after this session. We have a use case guide that details all the different metrics that I've mentioned, questions that you might potentially want to be asking, and the different indicators for each of these questions, the things that you can look for in your spreadsheets or in the data that you have. So, and we're able to do this with additional resources like a spreadsheet that we have that guides you on how to link your existing data to the open contracting data standard. And this is an example of what that spreadsheet looks like. So I don't know how small this is on your screens, but you see that we've grouped it into different areas, and I have the links there that I can share afterwards as well. You can see here that there's a market opportunity, and there are several indicators you can look at within your data to identify market opportunity, and then it gives you an explanation for it, for example. Let's look at the first one. It says the percent of contracts awarded to top 10 suppliers with largest contracted totals. So potentially, maybe you're looking for who are the people that get contracts from the government the most, and why are they the people that get it, and what are the values of those contracts they get, the largest contracts in the country, and why are those the contracts of value. So typically you would want information on the name of the organization, which is within the data identified as a supplier ID, then the award information on whoever won the bid. So information, and you can find that within the contracts ID and the award ID. And what's the rationale for this? See the rationale over there. An example is that a higher percent of contracts awarded to the top suppliers may indicate that there's a weaker market opportunity. It means that it seems like the same people are always the ones winning contracts, and that means that smaller organizations are not likely to win bigger contracts. So analyzing the concentration of overall contracted value gives you insight into how inclusive or competitive your public procurement market is. So let's get into use cases that may matter to you, something like value for money. So value for money refers to the effective and efficient economic use of resources in public procurement across the different stages. This means that it might not necessarily be achieved by only considering the price, or we made savings here, but it would deal with things like the quality of the items. Are you getting good quality items based on the price that you've purchased it? And then the efficiency of the process, how quickly were those items procured? Because you want to be able to do that in a quality manner, in a timely manner, and for a competitive price over time. And who are the people that this use case typically matters to? It matters to private sector, which are typically the suppliers and the vendors in government contracts, because they want to see trends in prices so that they can put in a competitive bid. And the quality and the duration that gives them the opportunity to identify more contracting processes that they can participate in. And of course, the government can use the same data to see if they can achieve value for money through this particular procurement process. And then civil society could also look at value for money if they're monitoring how government is spending its money. So what are the typical questions that we have attached to the value for money use case? How many contracts have had overruns? How frequently does this happen? How many contracts are completed on time? What price are we buying certain products? Are there significant price differences for specific products? Or what is the total percentage of savings in this year compared to a previous year? And then the next use case is public integrity. So this tends to deal with anti-corruption practices, ways of combating fraud, corruption, and other types of illicit behavior. And you can proactively calculate this using what we call the red flags indicator. And you can apply risk detection methods using open procurement data and allow to potentially detect corruption and fraud before it happens and to deter such illicit behavior. And the typical users of this information is government. The government wants to ensure that their contracting process is efficient and it is very thorough and it does not allow for illicit or corrupt practices. And of course, civil society tends to watch this to be sure that government is not stealing, that civil servants or people in government are not stealing or taking advantage of the existing procurement system for corrupt practices and illicit behavior. So what are the red flags? The red flags are, like the name implies, it basically shows like suspicious activity around and suspicious behavior or irregularities in your procurement process. So look at data this way. It can be thought of units of information that have been put into a system. And then within with that information, you can look at that information and see, okay, what are the gaps here? What trends and patterns am I seeing? So we have what we call red flags indicators that are linked to the open contracting data standard that can now show you different points across the public procurement chain where there could be suspicious behavior. And we map this to OCDS. So we have a red flags guide and it has at least 73 red flags and OCDS mapping for each flag. It also gives you the calculation method and the rationale. So similar to the previous spreadsheet that I showed you, we have something like that specifically for red flags, and it can inform you on if, okay, is this an issue of corruption? Is it why this took so long for this to happen? Or is it simply that the system is not efficient enough? So we're not able to pay people on time. We're not able to do certain things on time. Because sometimes when you use a red flag, it may not necessarily mean that there's corruption in the system. It may just mean that, okay, we need to improve this system. This system needs to be more efficient in capturing data around open contracting. Another use case that we have is the market opportunity use case, which typically resonates with the private sector because it's about giving suppliers a fair and equal access to procurement opportunities to improve competition, allow for more vendor diversity, and enable innovation. So this use case shows the different stages. It helps you to understand and describe the procurement market, analyze competition, and even evaluate each supplier's performance and what you could do as a supplier to improve on that performance of the service that has already been rendered and paid for by the government. So what are the questions and indicators around market opportunity? Some of the questions you have here are indicators that can describe the procurement market, indicators that can measure competition, and indicators that can track supplier performance. And typical questions will be how many contracting procedures were open in that period, and what categories was it, and for what amounts. And the other questions that you would also ask would be questions around how many competitive procedures received a single bid, which agencies or categories are more competitive than others, how many bidders participated in the process, what was the success rate, is it small businesses, is it women-owned businesses? So these are the points in the market opportunity use case. You can potentially look at how your procurement process allows for an enabling environment for people to participate in the process. And then, of course, there's also the question of if the market is concentrated, if it's an over-concentrated market, and does that afford you the opportunity to participate in the process? And then we have the efficiency use case, and I think I've spoken, I've given a couple of, I've said a couple of times the value of the efficiency use case when I was speaking of value for money. It refers to ensuring that the financial, time, and human resource investments in a procurement process results in high quality service delivery and value for money. And it helps governments to drive best procurement practices and systems while reducing the resources needed, such as money or personnel time. And that's what the EGP systems that are being developed across countries now is seeking to address. It wants to be able to save time because paper-based processes are a lot more tedious and very dependent on human capacity. But with an EGP system, it saves you a lot of time and finances around the entire conduction of the entire procurement process. And some of the key questions and indicators you ask here are the duration and different stages of the contracting process. What are the delays? Are there short bidding periods, or the bidding periods are too long? How many opportunities were cancelled? Were contracts delivered according to schedule? Are suppliers paid on time? So you see, in terms of efficiency, we tend to be looking around the time length, how long it takes for the contracting process to happen, and how long it even takes for people to be paid out. Those are some of the key things we focus on when we mention the indicators and questions that you should be asking around the efficiency of your procurement system. And in practice, there's an example where we saw some inefficiencies. Oh, I lost connection. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yes,
Yes,
we can.
yes, Mr. We can hear you.
And
Yes.
can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Pardon?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, yes. Yes, so I was just going, thank you so much. I was just going over the indicators and questions around improving your efficiency. And it's primarily focused on, why does this connection keep going out?
Carry on, Ms. Okon.
Sorry, my connection keeps timing out and I'm not sure why, but I hope it's better now. Let me connect to my phone instead.
Okay. You can continue presenting. Just 5 more minutes. Thank you. Andy, you can continue presenting.
Hello.
Yes,
am I back?
Presenting. Yes, we have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yes, I'm just about wrapping up. I'll be done in about 5 minutes, so that's fine. Thank you for your patience and apologies for the breaking connection. So yes, I was talking about efficiency. And then finally, the use case that, the final use case I'm going to touch on is called service delivery. And it typically focuses on how public contracting delivers value to citizens in terms of the quality of goods, works, and services provided by the government. So it focuses on analyzing the implementation stage of the contract to verify whether goods, works, and services are delivered in a timely manner with good quality and at the agreed price. And an example of that is something that we've seen in Makueni County. It's a county in Kenya, and we've seen that that county has taken action that has led to open procurement in Kenya. By utilizing and working with the different indicators we have around service delivery and making savings and value for money for the government, they've been able to save over $407,000 in their road construction. They've also increased their supplier diversification by 3.6%. So that means that more businesses are able to participate in their procurement process. And then the average number of bid opens for procedures, bidders that open for procedures is about 3.8. So they also saw an increase there. And then, of course, the number of public procurement processes that they were publishing increased significantly to 461. So I think what you see with the Makueni story, for example, is that in addressing one model, in picking one focus on their reform, where they committed to adopting open contracting model to eradicate corruption in the use of public funds by implementing a sustainable approach for effective procurement through the disclosure of their tenders and public contracts. You will see that they were able to achieve value for money as well. So while they were focused on eradicating corruption, they improved their efficiency, they achieved value for money and achieved value for money as well. And what was interesting, and which is something I've spoken of over and over again through this process, is that they did not do it alone. They partnered with experts. They worked with us, and they also worked with Open Data Experts Development Gateway. And then they carried out a stakeholder engagement with local civil society, civil society groups to support monitoring. And then they made a commitment to disclose their information on company ownership to identify corruption and expose beneficial ownership. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with the concept of beneficial ownership, which shows you who is really behind the companies that are winning contracts or the companies that are bidding for contracts. Another way that we've seen it used is in Nigeria for citizen feedback and project monitoring. So under COVID, some agencies in Nigeria, at the federal level, there was a publication of the COVID emergency procurement. They were proactively publishing data on COVID emergency procurement, and one of the procurement monitoring CSOs in Nigeria called PPDC carried out an analysis of that process. And we've worked with them. The procurement agency, BPP, began publishing this data, and we saw that positive change in the collaboration earlier in the year in 2021, just right after COVID. So now their page has that COVID, it has the, as you can see on the screen there on the right-hand side state of the page, they have a COVID-19 page, and CSOs and journalists have been analyzing and feeding directly back to this page to improve on it and to collaboratively improve on it. So they've been working together to improve on the page. So what happens is that when civil society and citizens are interacting with these platforms, they're able to see, okay, this is not the information we're looking for, or the platform is not as user friendly as it should be. So it helps to give the government constructive engagements to work jointly to achieve better performance of public contracts. And then this type of opportunities also support non-state actors to monitor public procurement through the analysis of this available data and report back to the government on their findings. And this can help with addressing issues of keeping within your budget, on-time delivery on your contracts, compliance with specifications, and even the satisfaction of citizens. Another way that it was used more recently is a small state in Nigeria, Ebonyi State. their procurement data, they have been publishing their procurement data on their OCDS portal. And a civil society called Data Fight carried out some project monitoring on there. And they were able to see that a lot of projects for the teachers' quarters were abandoned. And after the investigation, the state's procurement agency explained itself and then now resumed. So they restarted work on those abandoned projects. And this happened across 6 project locations. And the contractors were able to return, thanks to this intervention and coverage of the story through project monitoring, the contractors were able to return to the project sites and then resume the construction and completion of these different projects. So it's, in conclusion, this just simply shows you that data is just one piece of the puzzle. So while data addresses a lot of things, we also help you to design your reform holistically so that data publication and data use are part of your larger story and theory of change around improving your public procurement process. So I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak to your network, and I open the floor for questions because I know I have been talking for a pretty long time. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Andy. We will go to the next country case presentation, and let's stick to the maximum 20 minutes presentation so that we can be able to manage our time. I then ask the Isaac Fanny, the acting Chief Procurement Officer from Treasuries, South Africa. Thank you. We'll ask questions at the end of the presentations. That's where we'd have more time to ask questions. Thank you, Mr. Fanny.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you for the invitation. We appreciate the sharing of knowledge and information that flows within this formation, and thank you very much. I am going to give Mr. Tumelo Ntlaba, who's the Chief Director responsible for ICT and reporting and recording within the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer in South Africa, to take us through a presentation, and then we will take questions as soon as he has done. Mr. Ntlaba, you may project. What we have done is to just indicate how we collect data and how that data is then manipulated to provide us with management information that we require in terms of our governance, monitoring, and compliance in procurement in our space. This is only at a national level. The provincial and as well as the local municipal level also do data collection and data dissemination in a manner and a fashion that is stipulated in their respective policies. The management of data within the government of South Africa is derived from the 3-tier system, which is the national office, the provincial office, as well as the local government office. Mr. Ntlaba will take you through the presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Ntlaba, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Fanny, and good afternoon to everyone. Can you see the presentation on your screen?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So here in South Africa, the way that we are currently structured, we've got the National Treasury, and within the National Treasury, we have the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer, which overlooks and oversees how public procurement is done and regulates, and we monitor how procurement is done within the country. And we are having 3 spheres of government. We've got the national departments, we've got provincial, we've got local government, and also we've got entities. And our main purpose and role is to ensure that we improve in terms of transparency, and we ensure that we can be able to make access to data available to everyone that needs it. And mainly from our side, we're looking to add interoperability, and we want to make it easier for us to be able to consolidate this particular data that we have across the different spheres of government, because our main challenge is that within the country, we don't have one single procurement system or our payment systems, but we've got various systems that we're currently utilizing, of which makes it a bit complicated from where we are sitting, so that we can have access to single consolidated data across all spheres of government. But we have actually started quite a number of projects whereby we are starting to consolidate and bring in the various data sets, and we bring in those into one, so that we can be able to analyze the data, look at trends, and be able to provide one single view regarding how public procurement is doing in the country. So we've got like I said, we've got quite a number of different data sources. If you look at our national and provincial government departments, there at least we are kind of sorted, because we've got one system that is utilized by a number of organs of state, and that particular system we call it basic accounting system. And from there, we are able to see all the payments that have been done to the different suppliers. What did we buy, and whom did we pay? We also have what we call a central supplier database, of which consolidates all supplier records of all suppliers that are doing business with South African government. So if you want to do business with any organ of state in the country, you are required to register yourself on this central supplier database, and it allows us to have a consolidated details of all the suppliers. So this will include things like what is the annual turnover of that business, what is the size of the enterprise, who are the directors of the business, where is it located, is it owned by women, is it owned by youth, and so forth. So all that info that relates to a supplier record, it's centrally managed, and it allows us to be able to have a pretty good view in terms of who are the actual suppliers that are doing business with government. And we are also maintaining a central portal whereby all tender opportunities that are available within organs of state, we want them to be centrally available and easy to be available to all members of the public. And that information is on what we call an e-tender publication portal. And that allows us to be able to, in my next slide, I'll indicate how does all these data sources tie up. But basically on the tender portal, that's where we put in our procurement plans, our tender adverts, and also contracting data. We also have started also with a project whereby, in terms of our governance and monitoring, we are starting to finalize a project whereby we will be receiving our current reports that relates to deviations from normal procurement processes to allow us to monitor what's happening within organs of state. That data also will be coming through electronically, and it allows us to be able to link that particular data also to tender opportunities, and also for transparency's sake, so that we can be able to inform members of the public and everyone else, including civil society, can see actually what are the organs of state deviating on, who are these particular suppliers that are being deviated on, and what is the biggest or type of deviations that we are currently dealing with. We also have access to our national salary or personnel system, of which we utilize within South African government, mainly for national and provincial departments. And also we get data that is relating to employees of municipalities. So with this data, it allows us to deal with conflict of interest. Conflict of interest, so that we can be able to manage and enable buyers also to be able to see before they procure or enter into a contract with anyone, then they can start to see if whether actually these particular suppliers having directors that are conflicted, and are there any red flags that we should be able to raise. So that is the type of data that we have that allows us to be able to do that type of matching. So all these different data sources that I just spoke about, we have put in a portal or a process that allows interoperability between these. So there's an integration process that we've put in, whereby all this data is put into one data warehouse, whereby we are now be able to manage the data, mine it, put in some reports, and be able to share some of those particular reports accordingly. And also from COVID, also what we did also for COVID-19, what we had to also for transparency specific requirement, had to put out and publicly publish the information that relates to how much was spent on COVID-19, what did organs of state actually buy, and from whom did they buy this particular item. So we've got a dashboard also of which we've published, whereby we are displaying the organs of state that have bought PPE related items or commodities that are related to COVID-19. They range from PPEs to temporary structures and so forth. So that information is also publicly available on a dashboard, of which we ensure that civil society and members of the public can be able to mine that particular data and be able to ask relevant questions and also improve accountability in that regard. And recently, we also went through a process whereby we actually had floods in especially KZN, KwaZulu-Natal province, and our Eastern Cape province, whereby we had a number of floods and a lot of damages actually happened in that particular space. And there was also an outcry also from members of the public regarding the procurement that will happen in order to bring in relief to the people regarding these disasters. So we've also put up a dashboard that relates to specifically to the flood disaster relief, whereby organs of state are required mandatorily so to publish information that is related to procurement processes that are related to disaster relief efforts. So that info is also available on our website, and that data, it makes it also much easier for people to be able to see what's happening and who are actually benefiting from this particular procurement opportunities. So with all these different data sets, sources that I spoke about, we have started implementing an open contracting data standard. We've been on this particular journey now for, I think, about five months or so. And what we've done up to so far is to take all the information that we have in terms of procurement and start implementing an open contracting data standard that is going to enable us to be able to publish the data in an OCDS format to make it easier for civil society to be able to download and utilize other tools that have been created by open contracting or by other civil society organizations, so that it can be easier to mine that particular data. We've been publishing most of this particular data, but not necessarily in a format of which complies to OCDS, and we've partnered with open contracting so that they can assist us through this particular journey. We can be able to implement the open contracting standard and make it easier. So we are almost done with that particular process. I believe by the end of this month, we should be able to have that particular page now be visible to the members of the public. So on our current e-tender portal, whereby all the tender opportunities are published, we will now have a space whereby members of the public can go there and be able to download certain indicators based on OCDS standard. And this will be one of the things that will make it much easier for people to be able to interpret and get hold of our data that we have. So from our tendering process, what we are currently collecting and publishing to the public, we're starting from procurement plans. As soon as organs of state start planning that you want to go and purchase these particular items, that information is currently available to the members of the public online. And from planning, we also take it further, whereby now organs of state can publish tender opportunities. From those opportunities, they can link all their tender documents. As soon as a tender is closed, or if it's cancelled, then we can take it to award. The award information is already available on the portal. And once it has been awarded, we take it to a contract management, whereby all the contracts that have been concluded with the winning suppliers then are also available in the same environment. So all these data that we already have has now been linked to OCDS, and we've put in data transformation processes whereby we can be able to take the data and new things that we are putting in or developing into our transparency portal, if I can call it that, then are aligned into the OCDS standard to make it easier to be able to measure or bring in additional indicators. So in summary, so what we have, we've got quite a number based on the different data sources that I mentioned earlier. We can be able to do a number of things. We are able to report on how much a particular organ of state has spent over a particular month, which are the top 10 suppliers of a particular organ of state, or top 10 suppliers of government as a whole. we can see as to how much have we spent as government through public procurement by province. We can also segregate the database on the location of the suppliers that we're doing business with. So we've got quite an interest in terms of small or suppliers that are coming from rural areas or townships. There's quite a huge interest on our side to see as to how much are we spending in that particular space. We can see as to what are the 10 commodities of which we are purchasing as the state. We can even drill that down also to a level of an organ of state to say, as a particular department or organ of state, this is our highest spend, and our spend is mainly on a particular commodity. We can also take it to be able to tell in terms of ownership of these particular suppliers that we're doing business with, as to how much spend is going to Black-owned companies and where are they located, and their top 10, and mainly if it's a Black-owned company, majority of the Black-owned companies, what type of a service do they provide? So people with disabilities also, we've got quite a huge interest in that particular space to measure actually are we making progress in empowering businesses that are owned by people with disabilities. So all this data is currently already mapped to our the OCDS standard. As much as we are publishing it out there in our dashboards, then people will soon be able to download the raw data, but in OCDS format compared to the way that we are currently doing it in more of graphs, not necessarily people not having access to download the data that is on the background so that they can be able to drill deeper onto it. So we also are able to do things like we've got what we call triple BEE, Black Economic Empowerment, of which we can be able to measure whether we are doing businesses with companies that are on which particular level, because our triple BEE indicators provide a number of levels, can either be a contributor ranging from level 1 to being a non-contributor at all in terms of a triple B. Measure that so that you can see, are we making progress in that particular space? I spoke earlier about spend in terms of the size of the businesses, whether you're a small business or you're medium size or you are a large enterprise, how much are we spending on those? So those are things of which are quite important from buyers' perspective and also from civil society, because you can see our intention or public procurement should also help us so that we can be able to grow small businesses and medium enterprises, not necessarily spend all the money with bigger enterprises. And with the access to data, one should be able to manage their procurement efficiently and can be able to make informed decisions as to as and when you put up strategies as to how are you going to empower certain particular categories. So this is what we've been doing up to so far. And lastly, in terms of conflict of interest, mainly it ties back to red flags that Andy spoke to earlier. So here we are able to tell as to which particular businesses or suppliers if actually have conflict of interest. And conflict of interest, we work it out in terms of indicators. We are able to see if whether a particular business is actually linked to an individual that is currently employed by any organ of state, and that is already reflected as and when they want to procure with that particular entity. An official will need to go and draw what you call a CSD report, a Central Supply Database report, that will provide that person to say, but you want to procure services from this particular business, but actually in this particular business, one of the directors is employed by a particular organ of state. Therefore, they are able to make informed decisions. And also from here, with the conflict of interest, then we're able to raise and provide similar data that or things that we pick up with, let's say, our Department of Public Administration, and they're able to follow up on these particular cases whereby you find that certain particular individuals employed by the state are doing business with the state, so that they can be able to assess as to what were the reasons, were there necessary permissions provided, and so forth. So this is also one key area of which helps us a lot from managing and seeing if whether we're progressing, and also dealing somehow with corruption-related matters. And we share this particular data with relevant authorities so that they can be able to investigate where it's needed. And the ethics officers within organs of state also have access to this particular type of reports, and they are able to analyze and follow up with the employees within their organizations so that they can be able to try and minimize these types of cases. Okay, and then we are able, of course, to get also the spend in terms of what we call standard chart of accounts. Basically, that's how we are currently segregating the items that we are paying, so that we can see exactly in which particular areas are we spending money on. Can it be on medicines, can be infrastructure, and so forth and so forth. So it makes it easier just to manage and to see what we are doing. So in conclusion, it's basically driving transparency and efficiency so that we can have a better view in terms of how we're doing from procurement perspective. And if you have access to data, then you are able to make informed decisions. And with informed decisions, then it means that you can even spend less for particular type of commodities. You can be able to plan better and be able to get value for money for items that you are procuring. And of course, not forgetting about civil society that is out there, and also members of the public, so that they can be able to hold us as public procurement officials accountable in terms of how are we spending public funds, so that we can be able to advance service delivery. So basically, this is how we are currently and where we are from South African perspective regarding the data. And it's a journey. I believe that there's quite a lot of things that we still need to do, and the complexities that still come in the different spheres of government that we have. But we've made some significant strides. I believe that over the coming year, we should be able to continue on what we've built on and bring in more data sources so that we can make this particular process to work and be more efficient. Thank you very much, Chairperson, and Mr. Fani, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ntaba. Would wait the questions, and we'll proceed to the next presenter, which is Zambia, Ida Chela. Thank you.
Chairperson.
Just try to mute the other devices that you are within your area, so that they don't create the disruption. Thank you.
Chair, the Director General.
Please go ahead. Okay.
Chairperson.
Okay, thank you.
The Director General will not be able to present. Instead, Mr. Malcolm Kowani will be able to present. There's an emergency that has come up, which she's attending to. So Mr. Malcolm Kowani will proceed to present the presentation for Zambia. Mr. Kowani.
Okay, please go ahead. Thank you.
Chairperson, please just bear with us. We've got a small technical problem Just within a minute, we'll sort it out.
Zambia, if you have challenges, Malawi, are you able to at least cover for them while they're still sorting out the technical issues?
Yes, I think I can do that. Let me just share my screen, and then if we happen to be there, let me know.
Okay, thank you. I will assist Zambia at the back end. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet. Try again.
Okay, let's share my screen. Are you there now? Chair?
It's not yet.
Not yet. Oh.
Chairperson, we can allow Malawi to proceed.
Thank you.
We'll take
Thank
up
you
the
very much.
presentation thereafter.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just working on my slide to share with you, but I'm ready. Sorry, Chair. I'm just trying to ensure that I share. Are you able to see my screen? I'm able to see my screen. Are you able to see it?
Unfortunately not. I think maybe there's a challenge. Can you send it to the Secretariat to assist? Yeah, thank you.
I already shared on WhatsApp.
There is a screen that we have before us. It's Abdul. Can you assist Mr. Abdul?
Yes, I'm trying. I'm trying. Can you see something? I'm preparing it.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Do you see it?
Yes, I'm able to
are you
see.
able to see the screen? All right,
Okay,
so
then I'm
please
going
proceed.
to, yeah, then I'm going to change the mode of sharing. All right, from the very beginning.
Okay, Zambia, can you forward your presentation also so that we can be able to assist you with the slides? Thank you.
Okay, you see it?
Yes, I'm able to see it.
Okay, good. So let's go. You can be talking, please.
But
And
I'm
just
getting
stay.
I'm getting some interruptions.
After, please
Well,
mute your mic. Thank you.
hello.
Okay, please go ahead now. We are clear now. Thank you.
You're able now to see my screen. Come on. Coming in. I'm still getting some interruptions.
Okay. That comes from after. Can you maybe remove the shares,
Okay.
the screen share after on your screen?
D'arrêter de partager l'écran, je ne sais pas, mais peut-être que c'est la vidéo. It's
Hello?
okay. Yeah.
All right. That's what
If it,
I think I'm going to have to remove.
You can see the screen, right? The presentation, right?
Hello?
Yeah.
Uh,
You can see the
if Malawi is not ready, I think we.
the
Hello?
presentation is there. Can everyone see the screen, please?
Yes,
yes, the
I
screen
can
is.
see my screen, but it's being
Yes, we can see
interrupted.
the screen.
If you can
But it's
just
being
talk, if you can just talk the way you're talking, you can just tell me to, go to the next slide, and I proceed that way. I think that would be great that way. For everyone can see the screen right now, so just tell me what the next slide is, and I proceed that way.
no. I needed to start from the beginning. Then
And I think
because
that's the very beginning.
Yes.
This is the very beginning.
my screen here is interrupted. There is a window also of participants.
If you can close the windows and it will be okay. Close that window. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it will be
I'll
fine.
just
No, not
minimize
that
it.
the one, this one, the first one. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, very good. Yes. We see.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Please go ahead now.
Abdul, yeah, we have lost you. Can you share the screen again? Abdul, we have lost.
You can restart the process again, then we will be able to see.
Yes. Can you try Malawi to see if you can be able to share the screen from your side again? It looks like we have lost Abdul.
Hello? Chair?
We have lost the secretary. Yes?
Yes, maybe Zambia can present whilst Malawi is still having those issues.
Okay, Zambia, if you are ready, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Zambia, if you are ready, please go ahead. Okay, thank you, Malawi. You're on the screen now.
Hello?
Ish. Okay, Zambia is now, Zambia is now available. Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, all right. So the presentation we're going to do is about how we're implementing open contracting data standard in Zambia. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, it's perfect. Just make it on a slideshow. Slideshow. On the bottom right side, there's a provision for slideshow.
This Malawi.
It looks like Malawi has come online now.
So I'm feeling. Okay, Chair, we'll allow Malawi to proceed.
Okay, please proceed. Sorry about that.
Move on.
Go ahead, Malawi.
We still don't get Malawi yet. I can hear Malawi.
It looks like he lost connection.
Then let's see Zambia.
Zambia, are you able to come online?
Yes, I think we can come on.
Okay, can you put up your presentation on the screen? Abdul, you can bring down their presentation for Malawi.
Okay.
Unable to see. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it. You can make it slide.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's go ahead.
So the presentation for Zambia has been structured in the following way. Are the slides moving that side?
It is not moving, and also make it slideshow. You can close the document recovery on the side.
Okay. This is Yeah, are we able to see from that side now?
Yes, we are able to see it. Please go ahead.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
So the structure for the presentation is as follows. We'll talk a little bit about the definition of what the open contracting is. Then we'll talk about the electronic government procurement rollout in Zambia, how we are rolling it out. Then we'll talk of the OCDS implementation, how we've implemented the OCDS. And then after that, I'll talk about the reports that can be obtained from our EGP system and the OCDS. Then after that, we'll look at the users of the system and the reports that are on the system. So by definition, open contracting, like we heard from the first presenter, is simply it's a growing trend focused on the enhanced disclosure and participation of public contracting at all stages of the contracting process and all types of contracts. So in Zambia, the Zambia Public Procurement Authority started rolling out the electronic government procurement system in July 2016. And then before 2018, the usage of the... Hello? Are we able to see my screen?
Yes, you are clear. We are able to see.
Okay.
The only thing is that your presentation is not yet in slide mode, but I can see you've already selected that item. So maybe there's some problem. Just go ahead with the presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, just a moment. Is it visible now?
Yes, it's now visible. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so as I was saying, we started rolling out the electronic government procurement system in Zambia in July 2016. And the system then was, as a country, we were using the Public Procurement Act number 12 of 2008. And in that act, the usage of the electronic government procurement system was not mandatory. So we made some reforms as a country in terms of procurement registration. And in April last year, we enacted a new Public Procurement Act number 8 of 2022, which repealed and replaced the Public Procurement Act number 12 of 2008. And in this new act, the electronic government procurement system is now mandatory. So it is hoped that all government institutions will be on board. And with that, we're going to get a lot of data from the OCDS, because all government procurements now will be used on, will have to be floated on the electronic government procurement system. So currently, 364 procuring entities of the 519 procuring entities in the country are registered on the system. So from the 364 procuring entities on the system, 198 procuring entities have been trained and are using the electronic government procurement system. So from the time that we started rolling out the electronic government procurement system, we've had 4,213 tenders that have been floated on the electronic platform. And then also from the time that the system has been implemented, we've registered 47,654 suppliers and contractors that are currently registered on our system. So for the suppliers, the registration is they do it on their own. They self-register on the system, whilst the procuring entities, they have to be registered by ZPPA. And then we've been conducting continuous capacity building activities for the procuring entities and the suppliers on how they can use the system and get information from it. So when it comes to open contracting data standard implementation, so the EGP enables the publication of structured data and documentation pertaining to the planning, procurement award, and implementation of contracts in accordance with the Public Procurement Act and its regulations. So 38.1% of the total procuring entities have been added on to the system for full usage. And this has been a major limitation because the other procuring entities that are not using the system, their information cannot be obtained on the open contracting data standards. So the target rollout for 2022 is that we are hoping that we are going to train and add 2,000 procuring entities to the electronic government procurement system. And it is hoped that with more procuring entities on the system and more activities happening on the electronic government procurement system, more information will be accessed by the OCDS because it will be picking from an increased number of procuring entities. So 200 for this year, and we are hoping that by next year, all government institutions will be on board. So we've created a portal where this open contracting data can be obtained by the members of the public or anyone who's interested in the Zambian open contracting data standard. So the information can be accessed from that from this website that is showing on your screen. So you can go to www.zppa.org.zm/OCDS-data. And you can be able to see how we're implementing the open contracting data standard in Zambia. So for the reports, the OCDS reports that we have currently, we have close to about 21 reports that can be obtained from the OCDS. So among the reports that you can get from our system is that you can get reports which shows the average number of bids by procuring entity using a particular method. So you can see which procuring entities have floated out tenders and what methods they are using So this information can be obtained from our OCDS. And then also, you can get a report which shows the number and percentage of open tenders in relation to the total procuring entities tenders. So this information can be seen from our system. And then also, you can also see the number and percentage of cancelled tenders by procuring entities. So if you are interested in a particular procuring entity, you can go to the OCDS and you can get information to do with the number of tenders that they've cancelled in a particular period. And then also the other reports that can be obtained is that there are reports that shows the average number of days taken by a procuring entity to complete a process. So this information is there on our OCDS. You can also obtain reports which shows procurement activities by method, by procuring entities. And then also there are reports that have to do with the award statistics by procuring entities, how many tenders they've awarded. And we can also get information to see which suppliers have been awarded contracts on the system. So, and also the amounts. So the system can also categorize procurements that have been done on the system by way of the amount that the procuring entity has spent on that particular procurement. And then awards also can be split by spend categories. So these and many other information and many other reports can be obtained from the open contracting data standard. And then the use of the open contracting data. So the people who can benefit from the information that can be obtained from OCDS is the government, in terms of they can get information to which they can use when it comes to policy formulation and other interventions that they might want to bring about in the procurement field. And then also the public sector can use information from the OCDS to find out who are being which institutions are being awarded, what tenders are being floated, which tenders are being cancelled, and things like that. Even the civil society can also have access to the information that we have on the OCDS. And then also the general public also, they have access to the OCDS and they can use the information depending on the need that they might have. So as we sensitize, as the sensitization of the OCDS continues, and with more and more procuring entities being added onto the usage onto the electronic government procurement system, it is hoped that more and more information will be used, will be collected by the OCDS, and the reports will be enhanced, and there will be more and more users who have access to this information, and they will benefit from the records that we currently have on the OCDS. So this was about our presentation. So I want to submit that that's in a nutshell, that's what we have under OCDS implementation in Zambia. I thank you.
Thank you. May I confirm that Malawi, are you ready? Malawi, are you ready with the presentation? Secretariat,
yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, I'm checking with them. They said that they have some internet connection issue, but let me check with them. A moment, please. I'm on it.
Okay. Right. I apologize for the network challenges. Maybe I'll just remind you that the presentation is going to be it will be short, such that then it can be able to allow us to ask questions, and the presenters will be in a position to answer any questions that would come from the floor. Maybe, Secretariat, we can maybe take one or two questions from the floor while we're waiting.
We can do it that way, please.
Okay. Thank you. I can take 2 questions to any one of the presenters. For any one of the presenters, you can just raise your hand. Okay, let's lady. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Sir Lucas. I only have 2 questions here. The first one, my question is relating to the first presenter. I hope she's still around. Whereby.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, thank you. If you are still there, madam, you have thrown many questions to us, of which I was expecting the response from you. However, my direct question is this one. You talked about suppliers being paid on time. Therefore, my question is, how efficient is efficient to an extent that you conclude by saying that such a supplier was paid on time? Now, this is just one question to you. The second question is relating to National Treasury in South Africa, to Sentlama. For instance, we have just heard from the Zambia, whereby they have been quoting the Procurement Act. Formerly, it was number 12 of 2008. Now it's number 8 of 2022. Therefore, my question to South Africa is this one. Which procurement law are they using, bearing in mind that procurement is done nationally, provincially, and at a municipalities level? Are they applying the same principles or the same law across, to an extent that we'll say they have a uniform procurement law? Because from where I am, I think that Treasury is more related to the issue of payments, which has to be segregated from the procurement functions. But I heard that the head of the procurement is responsible under the head of the National Treasury. Therefore, is there no conflict there, to an extent that the procurement is not being an independent freedom to exercise its powers? I think I'll rather stop there, my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, may I allow them to answer? I hope Malawi will be ready. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer my question. So basically, how you asked the question around how suppliers are paid on time. That relates to the efficiency of the system. So let's look at a paper-based system. Typically, it takes a lot longer to process things on paper because all of the authorizations tend to happen manually, and you probably have to go from office to office. Like you mentioned for South Africa just now, that there might be conflicts of interest, the National Treasury, and there might be a budget office. All those signatures tend to happen paper-based, and that is time-consuming. But with an electronic system, all your approvals happen online, happen on the systems online. So there are different roles that are assigned to the different officers, procurement officers, or the different heads of departments that need to sign off on various regulations. And then how we now measure over time is that we would have a baseline indicator. So typically, let's say in your procurement agency, let's say it typically would take 45 days after a contract has been awarded to pay a supplier, for example. And then with the real-time publication of the data, because the other thing is that this data is meant to be published in as real time as possible. So at the point where you have awarded someone a contract, that should be uploaded immediately. The point where you have shortlisted bidders, all of that. So it relies on the system being uploaded in real time. So when you have that baseline, for example, let's say it's 45 days after the award of a contract that you pay a supplier. You can measure over time with your EGP system and your open contracting data standard. You can see, because there are fields within there that show the dates and the time. It has a date and timestamp fields. And so based on those fields, you could see that it took maybe 30 days instead for that process to happen, because all the levels of approval happen virtually. So that reduced the time in between getting information across to another office. So one person could be sitting in their office signing off on that, and the next person signing off immediately. So it deals with, so that relates to automating your approval processes. It deals with which are some of the things that the EGP system gives allowances and takes care of based on the different users. And I think in EGP they're called super users. You have super users and other regular users that can have levels of approval within the system. So that's how you save on time on how suppliers are being paid.
Thank you. South Africa, the second question.
Thank you very much. I can go ahead to Melontlaba here. So that let's say this. So in terms of the act, the legal framework of which we utilize in the country, so we've got two acts of which are addressing the different spheres of government. We've got Public Finance Management Act, of which has an element and regulations that relate to public procurement. And then we also have a Municipal Finance Management Act, of which deals with or addresses an element of procurement for local government. So this poses quite a huge challenge for us, because the way that you deal with PFMA institution versus MFMA institutions, it becomes a bit tricky, and a lot of administrative burden comes in there. Hence, currently we are in the process of having a single bill that we call that at the end we'll call a Public Procurement Act, but currently it's still a bill. We're in the process of finalizing that process. So what we are busy with is to take all public procurement related legislation out of Public Finance Management and Act, and have a separate act that deals specifically. It looks like my network is failing me. Can you hear me, colleagues?
Yes, I can hear you,
yes,
sir.
you are clear. You are clear, sir. Okay, go ahead. I think you are clear.
We can hear you, Mr. Ntlaba. Please go ahead.
Oh, you can hear me now. Okay, apologies. I'm having network challenges on my side. Yes. So the public procurement bill that is currently being drafted, and you're in the process of finalizing that, it's going to allow us to have one consolidated legal vehicle for dealing with public procurement across the entire all spheres of government, which will simplify quite a number of things, because we'll all be singing from one hymn book, and it will allow us to be able to deal with challenges that Lesedi has mentioned. So currently, the procurement in the country, it's governed under the National Treasury. We have an Office of the Chief Procurement Officer that deals with regulatory matters and compliance that relates to public procurement and setting up the norms and standards. But as part of the procurement bill, there were a number of proposals in that, but we'll see in terms of how it's going to end up. One of the proposals was that the public procurement should be a separate entity that is autonomous and can be able to deal with procurement-related matters. Another one was that proposal was that it should be still within the Treasury, but be a component of which it is separate. Now, those are some of the considerations currently, and the different comments that were received during the public consultation process are still being analyzed and consolidated, and then we'll see what type of format and shape this act is going to take. But it's also going to go more or less a similar route, the same as what our colleagues at Zambia are currently doing. So that is the response. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you. I think I can still take another question. Malawi is not yet online. Can I confirm if Malawi is already online? Abdul?
No, they aren't.
Okay, I think we can proceed to take questions. Kwame, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Yes, my question is to Zambia. I think we have a similar system that Zambia is using. I think was developed by the same consultants, and so we have similar features and everything. I want to find out how long have they been doing the implementation, and I see that there are still 34% of the entities that are still that are now fully using it. What is the main challenge that is preventing the other entities from using it, since it is now mandatory in your law? So what prevents them from using it at the moment? Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yeah. Can I take another one? Okay, maybe just another question from my side. Are you also able to do micro procurement on your procurement system? Considering that micro procurement, which is very small transactions, takes in terms of numbers, it takes a lot of transactions, and also that is where most of the vulnerable groups participate in public procurement, and that question goes to either one of the presenters, because you from your presentations, I wasn't sure whether you're only focusing on the mega projects or the high value projects, or also even the micro procurement, which are catering for smaller SMMEs and all that. Thank you. I think we can have the answers on from Mr. Kwame's question, and then the other one will be open to either South Africa or Zambia. Thank you.
Hello. So for the first question, the Zambia, the one that was directed to Zambia. So we, like I indicated, we started rolling out the electronic government procurement system in 2016. By then, we were using the Public Procurement Act number 12 of 2008, which didn't have the usage of the electronic government procurement system being mandatory. So we've been implementing it from that time, where it wasn't really mandatory for everyone to use. So last year, in 2021, we repealed and replaced the Public Procurement Act number 12 of 2008 with the Public Procurement Act number 8 of 2020, which makes it mandatory now for all government institutions to use the electronic government procurement system. So in that new legislation, there's a provision which gives a grace period. So the grace period was for 3 years, meaning from 2021 up to 2024, government institutions who are unable to use the electronic government procurement system, they are being allowed to use alternative systems. But after the grace period, that is 2024, the whole of government procurement then will be mandatory. It will have to be done on the electronic government procurement system. So the implementation is still ongoing, but by 2024, we are hoping that we'll have 100% usage of the system by all government institutions. And then for the micro procurements, the way the electronic government procurement system for Zambia has been developed, it picks from the Public Procurement Act. So it has got all the procurement methods that are in the law. So even simplified tendering, these small procurements, they also can be completed on the system. So it picks the smallest procurements can be done on the system, even the highest procurements can be done on the system. And all this information can be picked by the open contracting data standards for the reporting, for those reports that I had earlier mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. There is a question by Francis from Namibia. Let me just read it for you. Are there consequences for public entities that do not report data? And how is the reporting, and what percentage of the required entities are reporting? Thank you. Yes, I think that Zambia, you may answer that.
Thank you, Chair. So for the reporting that is done on the OCDS, if procurements are done on the electronic platform, then the system automatically picks data from these transactions that are floated on the system. So there's no really a requirement to say they have to submit these reports. It's automatic. Once they float their tenders on the system, they transact using the system, then the system picks the data from the transactions that they've put forth on the electronic platform. And then for the consequences, the new Public Procurement Act has got offenses. So if, let's say, the grace period comes to an end and there are some procuring entities who are not using the electronic platform, then there will be offenses that will accrue to them as both as individuals and also as institutions. So those ones, we haven't yet started implementing them fully as regards to the electronic system because of that grace period that has been put forth in the Act. So we will be implementing those offenses once the grace period is done.
Thank you. South Africa, maybe you can also share in terms of those questions. How is your status that side? Thank you.
So on our side, so procurement is decentralized. So the different organs of state are having different systems that they utilize in terms of facilitating their procurement processes. So us as the National Treasury, we only facilitate what we call transversal contracts, of which are contracts that are used by multiple organs of state, and generally they are high value contracts. But generally from the systems that we are currently utilizing from national and provincial departments, there we've got some control in the sense that we've got a system that we utilize for that manages the different types of ordering. Example, this, I think it was referred to as micro procurement. So on our side, we just call it as an RFQ process. It has its own threshold values. So that's where these particular orders are also generated. And we have now also started introducing similar function on our supplier database, whereby any organ of state, because there are those organs of state that don't necessarily have any systems in place, they are still utilizing manual processes, so they can also utilize that particular platform. But all the data that is generated from our ordering and payment system and from the CSD is consolidated into one, so that because we've got interfaces to those particular systems, and we're able to generate the reports accordingly. And of course, for the bigger procurements, then all those ones, all organs of state are supposed to advertise and award centrally from one place. But the management of those particular processes, example, for big tenders, so the process itself of managing the evaluation and adjudication and award is still done by the respective organs of state, but then they just need to report to us in terms of the outcome of those particular processes. And at the end, we are able to consolidate that particular data and bring it centrally. We still have gaps from what we call state-owned companies and entities, of which are completely running their own systems that are different but we've done a number of requirements in terms of APIs of which they need to report to us. So it's a journey of which we still are currently ongoing, but generally we're not facilitating the procurement from one place, just reporting from our side. Thanks. I don't know if whether Mr. Fanny you want to add or anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Fanny.
That's accurate. What Mr. Ntlaba has alluded to. I would not add anything. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes. If I can ask another one. Okay. In terms of the organization itself, Open Contracting Partnership, what role do you play when a country wants to make use of that standard?
All right, thank you for the question. So when a country wants to make use of the standard, we start by having a conversation to understand what your needs are. And like I mentioned in my presentation, is to get a better sense of what your reform goals are. And then based on the goals that you want to achieve, we can guide you on what use case that your goal reflects. And then we can start with capacity building based on the skill sets of your team. And we also have, and that covers a variety of training. It introduces your team to the Open Contracting Data Standard. We can also carry out a reform management training, like a change management training as well. And then we have our help desk, the OCDS help desk, that brings on technical support to your team. So in some cases, depending on the organization, and thankfully Tumelo is here, so he can also speak a bit to this, because we've been working very closely, like he mentioned, over the past 5 months, implementing the Open Contracting Data Standard in South Africa, in line with the Treasury, and also building a tool. So depending on what journey you decide to go on, it might be that you need an embedded support, so we can work with consultants. We can look to hire a consultant to support that work that you're doing. And then the consultant works very closely with you. And we just serve in a sense as middlemen that provide additional guidance as quote unquote the custodians of the data standard. And of course, the ultimate goal is to ensure that we are meeting our partners' needs, you as the government who is the end user, beyond even the civil societies that maybe in the longer term may use the data, but you are the first end user. And we want to ensure that whatever the output of our journey with you or our project with you is, it is of value to you first. So that's basically the journey that we go through, understanding your needs. And if you think of that big donut that I talked about, we always do start with your reform goals, defining that, because that's what's going to inform the entire journey as a whole. And then from there, we go to get a better sense of your systems. If you're already publishing your data online, maybe how to standardize that to the OCDS. So that's basically the kind of support we provide. We have help desk support and technical consultants or support. I don't know if Tumelo will shed light on what we just
Okay, thank you. I think Lucy, please mute your mic. Tumelo, would you want to add something on it? Okay. Now, if I may just ask a quick one, most of the different organizations are, let's say, like a situation in South Africa where you have different organizations using different systems. And if I may ask, how do you bring the different systems together, such that they are able to publish according to the standard, or do they have to bring the data to one site where they are able to, it can be able to be consolidated and shared, or the different institutions can just publish according to the standard, and then people can access that information from different locations.
Okay, thank you so much. So yes, sometimes it depends. It depends on how much each system is dependent on the other. Sometimes, like your payment systems, like IFMIS, are also dependent. With EGP systems, IFMIS, for example, tends to be dependent, or the procurement system tends to be dependent on your payment systems. So there is room for integrating all of that when you're implementing your EGP systems. And right from the start. So when we talk of stakeholder engagement, it's not limited to external stakeholders, but there are also internal government stakeholders and even the ministries, departments, and agencies involved in the process. Because in the end, it's not the procurement agency that carries out all the procurements or puts up the procurement plans. It is the ministries. So there's still need to speak to those different agencies. What do they have on ground? What can we work with? What are your procurement plans? And then finally, find ways to integrate the existing systems, because there's no need to reinvent the wheel if there's already something in place. All we would then try to do is make sure that it complies with the open contracting data standard. So in the end, it may just be, we don't need to build a tool from scratch. It may just be that we provide guidance on how to structure your data that is on your existing system to implement the open contracting data standard.
Thank you. Do we have any other question? Okay, I don't have any question. Secretariat?
Yes,
can we proceed with the program if we don't have any more further questions?
Well, I think we can proceed, just that Malawi is still in the same situation. Their problem is still there. So I think we can go to the next point, if you don't mind. Unless there are questions, okay, thank you.
Okay, maybe if we can have another chance for any more questions. Otherwise, we may have to proceed to the last part, where we have the closing remarks from the chairperson, Mr. Matsebula. The chairperson. Maybe the chairperson is engaged. I would ask the secretariat. We can have the closing remarks.
Okay. Well, thank you for this opportunity to see something that Secretary himself is not around. But let's just thank all of you for your commitment. It's very important to have all of you engaged to make all our activities or the activities organized by the technical secretariat a success. Well, I would like just to give some quick information for you to get ready for that. We've been calling you in advance for that, but very important to have it on the spot right now. We have for the sections now, it's going to be every first Thursday of the month. So keep it in mind. That means that for the next section, we are going to meet on the 5th of July, I guess. No, sorry, the 2nd of June. We're in July. Okay, this is the, I'm sorry. So we are in June, and then we have July. That is going to be the 5th of July. The 5th of July. And it's open contracting partnership again with theirs. And the countries to make presentations are Cameroon, Madagascar, and GRC. We also have the program, another one, a beautiful one coming. It's a webinar organized by both the World Bank and, let's say, the Technical Secretariat, and it's going to be on June the 9th. Very important. So please be there. It's going to be French and English. We really need you to be there. I just don't know if I can quickly follow them. Otherwise, I would send it to you all for you to get prepared. This is what I can quickly say apart from thank you, a big thank you to all of you. See you soon. Stay blessed.
Thank you, Abdul. I think from my side, let me thank you, the Open Contracting Partnership Program Manager. And let me thank you also the program presenters and the members of the APPN. And most importantly, also let me thank the team from the World Bank and also the African Development Bank and the Islamic Development Bank that are actually the partners to this program. So with all that, let me indicate that there are some more events as is indicated by the Secretariat, and we'll be sharing with you the dates and the times when these programs are going to be. And as I indicated before, when we indicate the GMT time, all you need to just check the time zone where you are and confirm whether it's 2 hours ahead or 3 hours ahead, so that then you don't miss on that. With all that, let me say thank you all, and the meeting or the workshop is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.